Welcome to Aquarian Anarchy, everyone. My name is Chad. I'm going to get to my co-hosts and our guest in just a moment. First, I will read our quote for today. It is Voltaire declare, "Anarchism to me means not only the denial of authority, not only a new economy, but a revision of the principles of morality. It means the development of the individual as well as the assertion of the individual. It means self-responsibility and not leader worship." And it couldn't come at a better time because here we are. You see me. I already introduced myself. You see Nico in the top right corner. You see my man Marcus in the bottom left corner, right below me. And our guest tonight is Anarchy in Gray. I will let Marcus do the more detailed introduction because you know a little bit more about the overall the I don't know, well-rounded nature of our guest here tonight, Marcus.
Sure. Yeah, I've been following him on Twitter for some time, and the number one thing that kind of attracted me to his Twitter page, and if you haven't checked him out, you should, is his focus on unifying. He does pictures with the different anarchist balls, the black and red, black and yellow, black and orange, all that. But he does memes for that, and he's calling for unity amongst anarchists, and that's something that we believe in. So that kind of attracted me to him. And over the past few months, he and I've had little exchanges here and there, and I've really come to be impressed by not only his wherewithal against some people that are just shit bags. I mean, just bad people, and from every side. And
it's a weekly thing.
Right. And but not only does he have that kind of wherewithal, he also comes with one of the things I like about him particularly is he doesn't say, okay, you got to come to anarchy from this direction. He says, come whatever direction you want, but also maintains his own belief in his particular form of anarchism, which is mutualism. And so I guess it was probably about a month and a half ago, I asked him if he'd want to come visit us on Aquarian Anarchy, because I'd like to we do a lot of work with organizing people to come together for freedom, whether they call themselves an anarchist or not. And this particular unity is going to be essential. If we can't get anarchists to unite, we're not going to be able to get the
non-anarchists to come with us.
Right.
Yeah, we're not going to have a chance.
Right.
Right.
So,
well, and it's funny because you actually tweeted something like that out. I wanted to I posted this in our Anarch chat. By the way, don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe. Join the Patreon, where at the $5 level you get to join the Anarch chat that I'm talking about. And so what I posted in there was you had these two tweets. I don't remember exactly when they're from, but you said two things I've learned in the Unity Coalition. First, people love tribalism, regardless if said tribalism leads to nowhere and actually strengthens the oligarchy. They'd rather feel special than to bring about change. And secondly, people are too afraid to step out of their tribe for fear of being alienated by the above mentioned tribe. This is why things have changed. This is why things have not changed, I think, and in the near future they won't. By the time we realize we only have each other, it'll be too late. And it's true. I really think that that's the thing that people got to recognize, is that the people who are the real enemy are not the people we're arguing with on Twitter.
No, they're not. They can be if you want them to be. I mean, if you're looking for a fight and you think your way is the only way, then you got enemies everywhere. But like, I've been an anarchist for a long time, and I've been mingling with other anarchists since I've been online. So probably around 2006 or whatever. And I have my own beliefs, but I also know that there's a bigger picture. Like, I was on the Facebook group, the Black Flag Coalition. I wasn't a real big player in that, but I was a big believer in it, And I come from more of my background is more left. I probably evolved a little bit more to what they would call post-left now. But there's absolutely no way forward unless we're together. I mean, look around. People are already, the whole left-right paradigm is out of control. And then we don't need it within our own circles. I mean, I know people have been arguing about individualism versus collectivism for, like 150 years. Okay. And it's really gotten bad since like the 70s, I guess, since the Libertarian Party formed, with Rothbard and all of that. But yeah, I mean, where we're at right now, we really have to do something about all this, or we're just going to go nowhere. I mean, all we're going to be doing is existing online and in net space and in our little cliques, and that's it. And we're just going to be preaching to the choir, talking to our own friends, having our nice little cliques, having our little brunches or what the hell ever. But we are not going to get anywhere unless we reach out to the other side of the aisle. And we don't have to agree on everything. We have the basics. We all come from the same place. Now, that tree has grown and it's branched out, and it's been watered by a lot of other different influences. I mean, like Rothbard, he was watered by the French liberal school. He was watered by the Austrian economic school. And you look at some of the ANCOMs. I mean, they have a heavy Marxist influence on a lot of them, and not necessarily Marxist-Leninists, but some of the other Marxist ideals. But we all come from the same tree, and we have to look at what's important if we want to keep moving forward and have any kind of freedom at all.
For sure. One of the things that I, because I tend to be what they would consider right, if you will, when it comes to economics, I fall pretty solidly in Rothbard's camp. But one of the things that I've said multiple times, and I think this is true across the board, is we have no fucking idea what a post-state economy looks like. We have no idea.
Right.
We can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah.
Right. And so arguing about shit we don't know about in when we have these people who want to throw us in cages and kill our children. Hello, there are more important things.
Yeah. Well, can I offer what I think is a window into what that looks like? Like,
sure.
Look at your home, look at your family, look at your friendships, your close relationships that are all anarchistic in nature, right? Like these people are part of your life because you love them and you care about them and you want them to be there. So when it's time to order a pizza with your friends, everybody gets together and they kind of agree. And if somebody's like, man, I don't eat pizza, like I hate pizza, or I don't like mushrooms or whatever, like you figure out like, okay, well, we're going to get like one pizza that satisfies that person. We're going to take care of, we're going to make sure that everybody's satisfied. And whoever doesn't want to be part of that, they can go to Chick-fil-A or whatever. They can get something else.
But cheese fries.
It kind of operates as a voluntary, almost communist sort of setup, right? In that instance, where nobody's fighting each other for resources or anything like that, and everybody agrees, like we're all putting in, and we're all going to take out as we are as we have put in. Like we're not going to abuse the system, right? The next part of that is when people in that circle start to abuse the system, you come to them and you say, "Hey, listen. This is not okay. Like you said you didn't want pizza. You didn't put in for the pizza. The pizza came. You ate half a pizza. Like that's not cool. Like the next time we do this, you're putting in for the pizza, or we're gonna go fucking eat a pizza in another room, and you don't get to come in there until we're done eating and everybody's satisfied."
Right.
And so there's ways that this stuff already kind of works itself out. I think the biggest problem is so many people have bought into this narrative that we're given by the oligarchs, that the only way society works is if it's centrally planned from somewhere far away.
Right.
And it's not localized.
I don't necessarily think that. It's not necessarily it's got to be planned far away, because look at like when you are younger and you go to like a little league or something like that. You got your coach that's right next to you. Everybody has that leader. Like you said, you have a household leader. If you look at the structured traditional home, you have the father who is the leader. Usually out of the tribes, you have the fathers who go up in front and have those conversations after they've discussed it with their wives and their kids and things of that nature. And it's not just like a dictatorship. It's a communion of people, of communion of heads. And so therefore an ego doesn't take that much. So it'd be a lot easier for you to come to that pile with, oh, well, these 13 people want their chicken wings. And then these 13 people want their pizza sliced diagonally and squared and things of that nature. It makes it a lot easier when you have somebody able to come forward with those solutions of that household or said community, if you will.
What's your take on that, Sven?
I think consensus, back to what you were saying, consensus is a very powerful tool, and it's very much about give and take. We can all work together and figure out what kind of pizza we need, but the people that are going to muck it up are the ones that have got to have it one way all the time, no other way. Okay, because see, I used to run with a lot of ANCOMs, and to a lot of ANCOMs, there's only one way that things get done. I mean, it's only one vision of it, and it's their utopian vision that they try to push on us. And if you don't believe in everything we believe, then you're out of the commune. But that's not the way consensus works. Consensus is a give and take. And so we can give and take as long as we can stay within a certain parameter. And I think we're in a good place.
For sure. And this might be a good place for you because you call yourself a mutualist, and I have a basic understanding of what mutualism is. But I think that for I would say the vast majority of the people, if they're calling themselves an anarchist that pay attention to us, are likely some form or another of an ANCAP or a voluntarist of some kind. So can you explain, frankly, for me, but also for those anarcho-capitalists that we might have listening, what the difference is? Because I've been shit on by ANCOM so many times I can't count, but I don't think I've ever been shit on by a mutualist. So I'd kind of like to know what the difference is.
I'm just having visions of fucking Team America right now, and I can't. I'm just like, was she a hot mutual? I mean, ANCOM when she shot on
right all the time.
Oh my god!
Anybody hear me?
I can't.
Yeah, I hear you.
Go ahead.
I think I'm having some problems here. Okay, so am I clear now?
Yeah, you're good. You're good. Go ahead, man.
Okay, cool. Sorry, you guys are all breaking up on me. I'm not sure what's going on there. Okay, so yeah, mutualism. Mutualism is essentially a group of ideas that were founded about the same time in loose forms in America by Josiah Warren and in France by Pierre-Joseph Proudhon. The idea behind mutual.
Oh, we lost him. Hopefully
no.
He'll come back in.
yeah. Hit him up to get him to come back in.
Okay, you guys carry this for a minute.
I'm not sure where his situation signal wise is, but hopefully he can come back on and finish that thought. Oh, there he is.
Okay,
all right, he's back. He's back.
I was about to say,
He's
how about
back.
that New York living?
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Am I in?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're back. You're back. You're on. You are on the air.
So you were saying Proudhon?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm standing by. It says I need to be added.
Oh no, you're in.
If you can hear us, you're in.
He can't hear us. I don't think. I think that's the problem, is that he's having trouble hearing us.
All right.
See how he has that redacted sticker across his eyes? That's the problem. Like the redacted got him. He's he has been.
Oh, they didn't appreciate the joke.
You guys,
it must be on my end. I'm catching glimpses of you and hearing bits and pieces of what you say.
Okay.
All right. Try to come in a moment. Why don't we take him out and you guys continue, and then with the unity idea, and then I'll see what I can do.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Nico, you brought up an interesting point that I guess I did. I will admit I kind of skipped over from the family standpoint. I guess the better metaphor would be just like that. You have a group of roommates, in a dorm or an apartment or something like that, and you all figure out when you're gonna order pizza and stuff like that. But you do bring up a good point that like there's both a natural leadership and an unnatural leadership that can sometimes come through like fake authority. That there's a balance between those two, right?
Right.
Yeah, and anarchy doesn't mean
I have to get my charger.
Order.
I didn't charge my. I didn't plug my charger in. Shit. We'll be right back.
At the end of the day, what we are all kind of striving for is freedom, and there's leaders in every group, just because, like, you could say that the campaign behind Adam Kokesh that I was involved in was a group of anarchists, and that would largely be true, but that doesn't mean that Adam wasn't the leader. He was still the guy in charge,
Right.
because he functioned in that manner.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but he was
are you
never
back with us?
a dickhead about it, like,
Right. And Sven, you back with us?
No.
I am not hearing you.
It was so great when he was able to hear us. I can see he's flashing like he's able to talk. I just think he can't hear us.
I think I'm in now.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear us?
All right. I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Victory.
So you were saying about the origins.
Yes.
Of
So the ideas that drive mutualism were started by Pierre Joseph Proudhon in France, and about the same time by Josiah Warren in the United States. And the idea of it is that, as in communism, okay, the means of production are owned by the community, by the commune, right?
Right.
The idea in mutualism is that the work that you do, instead of like owning the means of production, you actually get like a share of the actual profits that come out of it, as opposed to getting wages. So if we work for a roofing company, okay, and let's say Marcus is the proprietor, for lack of a better word. Okay, he has all the tools, okay, and then me, Nico, and Chad, we all work for him. So he's going to get paid $1,000 for his job. So he won't just pay us hourly. He will actually take that $1,000 and split it with us, taking out the money that he needs to pay for the tools and the wear and tear upon those tools.
Right.
Okay, so that would be like actual profit sharing instead of what they call profit sharing nowadays. That's not really profit sharing. Those are just crumbs. Mm-hmm. The idea of mutualism is that the money that your product makes goes into your pocket as well as the proprietor's pocket. That's the main drive behind it. So that's the most basic broke down point of it. Okay. Tucker also talked about the four basic rules, for lack of a better word, of mutualism, which is pretty much has to do with breaking up of monopolies. The first one is breaking up intellectual property, which I've seen a lot of ANCAPs are also against intellectual property.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The idea of occupancy and use, which would be breaking up the land monopoly, that would be like absentee land ownership. Mm-hmm. So somebody has a patch of land that they bought and they have just let it sit, right? Kind of like, the great manorial estates of the Middle Ages that weren't all being used. They would just sit empty, right? So in mutualism, you would have the possibility of occupying some of those spaces because they're empty. The other one is the breakup of the money monopoly, the dissolution of fiat currencies, which we actually see some of that with Bitcoin and all of the cryptocurrencies.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one, which really, I don't think it's quite as relevant as the other three, especially in our day and age, but it would be the dissolution of tariffs. So, I mean, obviously we have tariff wars and stuff like that.
Sure.
Yeah, and we can do without that.
For sure. What's funny
those are the four big points that Tucker really liked to drive home.
Right. And what's funny is I agree with every bit of that. Every bit of that. For me, I guess the only thing that I would say about the economic, because if I were creating a company and I was wanting to, include all y'all in there, I might do something very similar to what you're talking about.
Sure.
Because, it recognized the fact that I brought capital for whatever it's worth. I brought capital to the table, so it recognizes that that's covered. And
yes, and you're compensated for the capital that you spend.
Right. And so that makes sense to me. The only thing that I would add, which I guess might make me more of and to be clear to anybody that's listening to this, I don't fuck with any of that hyphenated bullshit. I'm an anarchist. I'm an anarch. I'm a voluntarist. I don't give a fuck about all that shit. But what might make me a capitalist is I'm good if like Chad starts a company and he wants to pay Nico $15 an hour to go work for him, and Nico says, yeah, I'm going to go work for you for $15 an hour to do whatever. I don't give a shit about that. That's
Nico said that ain't enough.
Right. Yeah,
Nico
He said it's 2021, man. What do you think?
right.
Nico, I know Nico makes more than $15 an hour already, so he's not bullshitting with that. Anyway, go ahead. But to finish your point.
Right. It's to finish my point. I don't care what contract they make. If they agree to it, then they're good. That's I guess what makes me a voluntarist. Whatever they decide to make, and I would in Rothbard, people come back with, well, what if somebody wants to be a slave? And Rothbard handles that really thoroughly.
Yes, he does.
In Ethics of Liberty, that can't happen. You can't decide that 3 years from now you're going to want to be a slave. You can't do it. So that doesn't work.
In the past 3 months or so, I've gone back and I've studied some of the Rothbard, and I mean, he's a real boogeyman, for the left. And the truth is, I mean, in a lot of cases, I mean, he's really dead on. Some of the points that I really liked about him is, he hated the state.
Right.
I mean, anatomy. I mean, you can listen to Anatomy of the State, and I mean, that could be written by pretty much anybody.
Exactly.
From any
that's why that's my
ideology.
go-to Rothbard work to give to somebody. I'm not like, I'm starting there, and then we'll go from there to what maybe other authors, or maybe more Rothbard, depending on where they land with that. But Anatomy of the State is pretty universal, and it's very short and an easy barrier to entry.
Yeah, it's a good gateway drug. I mean, I like his critique, like on the money, on the money that we use, and how the greenbacks and how that's a joke. He's against the corporatearchy. And when it came to like, he believed that he believed in the 40 acres and a mule. After the Civil War, I mean, he believed in reparation. He felt that the former slaves should occupy the plantations that they had worked on.
Sure.
And he had a nice little system. So, I've recently discovered that there's like a left Rothbardianism, and I really haven't looked into it yet, but I'm curious.
One of the things that I find interesting, because I've done an awful lot of not only reading Rothbard, but listening to a lot of his old speeches. Most of it's on YouTube. But one of the things I find interesting is Rothbard had a friend that was an anarcho-communist, and they got on. They were fine. You talk about that you started off with communism, and now you're kind of learning a little bit about Rothbard. It's very similar, but my first anarchist that I got into was actually Emma Goldman, so it's kind of funny.
That is pretty funny.
I mean, I was just that was Carl Hess's gateway anarchist, was Emma Goldman. I mean, I thought that was pretty amazing. She was actually probably the second or third one that I read. My first real anarchist I read was John Zerza, the primitivist.
I've not read him.
I just came across. It was just one of those things. I was like, I just realized that anarchism was actually like a revolutionary system instead of a lifestyle.
Right.
So I was like in my late 20s, I think, and I didn't have the internet, so I didn't really know shit. I thought I was an anarchist, but I was more of just like no ruleism kind of thing,
Anti-authoritarian.
But then I read this book called The Proud Tower. It was about the state of Europe right before World War I, by Barbara Tuchman. She wrote The Guns of August. And there was a chapter in there called The Idea and the Deed, I think it was. And it was all about the anarchist movements of the late 19th century. And I read that. I was like, oh, okay. So that's what anarchism means. And from then I was always looking through the sociological and the political science sections at the used bookstores. And Zerzan was the first thing I found.
Interesting.
Nice.
Interesting. I wanted to, if we could go back to when you were kind of drawing that economic model of sorts of the business owner and their equipment and all those things. So just to clarify, because I think sometimes this becomes a point of contention and I think it's unnecessary. this does not necessarily have to mean that the person who decides to set out and let's say it's a restaurant. Okay, I'm going to start a restaurant, and I buy the building or I lease the building, whatever the case may be, and I'm responsible for that and making sure that gets paid. I take care of all the utilities and everything. I'm buying the food and all the different all the equipment and everything and the other resources that are needed for that. But then I have like a hostess or a host who welcomes people when they come in the door. I have, bus boys. I have waiters, waitresses. You have chefs. And then you have like your head chef. Like, it's okay for all of these people because of how important their job is to what needs to be done. That like, if the person who is just, sweeping up the floor after someone leaves is not paid as much as the person who's in charge of making sure everybody still comes to eat here because the food isn't crap, right? Like it's okay to have a different sort of hierarchy of sorts of like wages based on the value of the labor that you're bringing to the table. And it's not just this, I worked this many hours or we all get an equal share because we all work here sort of system that some people, I think that's where sometimes people get their I don't know, nuts in a vice, is where people either ANCAPs try to argue against that when that's kind of a straw man, and vice versa. Maybe you have some ANCOMs that will come and they almost expect that. I've heard somebody one time say that like a business owner should just basically give up their business, and if they want to keep coming and working for the business, that's fine, but they don't own the business anymore. The workers do. And it's like, well, but you didn't do all the shit to like get the thing started in the first place. So where are you coming from?
They need to be slapped.
So what's where do you fall on that? Like talk us through how you see that setup.
From a classical standpoint of mutualism, all those incomes would be closely related, I think. But I also believe that mutualism is mutable. It's changeable. It doesn't always have to fall into one certain category, because you'll see differences between what Proudhon said, what Warren said, what Tucker said, what Green said, and then even all the way up to people like Roderick Long and Kevin Carson, and all the different things on that. I do think there are different places of importance when it comes to the labor that people do. It is kind of hard to justify someone who sweeps the floor making as much as the head chef. I know it could be hard to get our heads around that. But the first thing we have to look at, in the scenario that you gave me, you would not be leasing that building. You would have gone to a bank and got money for that with an almost zero interest rate on your loan. Because here's one of the things in mutualism is considered free banking. Okay, the only thing that you would be paying for on that money would be what it costs to process the loan. The interest rate would be very minute. Even Spooner talks about this. There's really no reason for an interest rate to be more than like 2 or 3%. So we have to really reorient the way we look at all these things, because from the very get-go, everything has changed. You're not paying rent because you're renting it from the bank, I guess you could say. You borrowed that money from the bank on almost a zero interest loan, and the goods that you're going to be receiving, everything would be cheaper in a mutualist society because there wouldn't be price gouging that we have, and the hoarding of resources. It's kind of like we have to get out of where our thinking is currently. I think that's one of our problems, because all four of us were brought up in a capitalist system, okay? And not only a capitalist system, but a capitalist system that's regulated and overseen by our Lord the state, right? So we've been brought up in a crony capitalist society. There's no doubt about that.
Right, for sure.
Okay, but I think that's where a lot of us in the movement, especially if they're wearing the yellow and black, they see that capitalism has brought an amount of wealth to us. There's no argument to that. I mean, even someone that doesn't make $20 an hour can still, have a good life and afford the things that they want, and not be living in a hut, maybe, unless you want to live in a hut, which is cool.
Right.
Right.
So people have seen capitalism has raised the standard of living for people in the Western world. And then the other dynamic that we have as an example is communism that we've seen, the Marxist-Leninist model of communism, which obviously is an abject failure. So people are looking at these two models, and so I think that's why so many people believe that the remnants of capitalism can be saved with Austrian economics following the models laid down by Rothbard. I'm not so sure about that, but since we are talking about economics at this point in time, I just think that eventually capital would be hoarded once again by a class of people, and that when they would accumulate wealth, they would accumulate power. Next thing you know, they have private armies.
So how would you change that?
Say again?
How would you change that operation?
We would change that because there wouldn't be the hoarding of wealth. Without the hoarding of wealth, you wouldn't be able to hire a private army. Without the hoarding of wealth, you wouldn't be able to hoard power like we see today. And there's nothing to stop that in an anarcho-capitalist world. Just like in an anarcho-communist world, there's nothing to stop the inner circle from forming a clique and taking over the commune, and essentially imposing another Marxist-Leninist version as opposed to an anarcho-communist version laid out by the likes of Bakunin and Kropotkin.
Yeah, well, I think like Marcus, I have kind of rejected the hyphenated anarchist stuff too, but and it's for that reason, because I think what we've been given this either you have to say that what we have is not capitalism and that capitalism is some pure thing that somehow got bastardized, or you have to say that this is capitalism and that's why it's evil. And I don't think either of those things is really necessarily true. I think what we have is you have, and I go back to Rothbard in the Anatomy of the State, where he says, I'm going to butcher the quote, but I'm going to try the best I can to quote it and not just paraphrase it. But he says,
"We don't judge."
He says, like basically the tribal leaders, whatever, they paused in their time-honored tradition of looting and pillaging a conquered village or a conquered tribe, and instead settled among them and exacted an annual tribute. And so I think what we have right now is we have a system that, for whatever we might want to think, is, quote unquote, capitalism gave us all these fruits that have been borne by a more free economy than when we had, fiefdoms. And then you go back even further, where it was just like you were lucky to get the crumbs that fell off of the king's plate or the lord's plate in your area. They've recognized that like they're less likely to be assaulted and overthrown by the people if they let us have a little bit more freedom and let us have our Netflix and let us have our 70-inch TVs and our alcohol and dance clubs,
our luxuries,
and have those luxuries that, oh, by the way, they're also all things that are actually it's an attachment to the state, an attachment to the oligarchs that they've harnessed you with. It's not the freedom that you think it is, because all of that shit, you're watching programming that they have decided what you're going to see and how it's going to be laid out to you and what it's going to steer you towards and all that stuff. So breaking free from that and recognizing that too, honestly, is an apparatus of that same thing, whether you want to call it the state or the corporate oligarchy, or beyond the corporate oligarchy, where you get to like the banking oligarchy. It's all like one and the same thing to me, where undoing all of that and asserting our own individual freedom and then working together to assert our freedom collectively against that is actually the answer, because it's not something as simple as, well, if we just preserve capitalism, that's going to be the end all be all, or if we just destroy capitalism, that's going to be the end all be all. The answer is rejection of that whole idea of those two being the dichotomy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We've been led to believe that there's only two choices in this world. I mean, there's left and right. There's capitalism or communism, and that's a great point that you bring up. But the pacification of the proletariat and the people of our country and of the Western world, and basically the entire world that is hooked up, that is online, that is digital. And we are all force fed all this entertainment. It's the classic case of distractification, without doubt. And if they can keep us all entertained, the classic bread and circuses, they keep us all entertained with that. We don't. Not only do we not worry about revolting, we don't want to revolt. Because we become pacified.
Yeah,
sure. Who wants to lose their Netflix? It's like the Dead Kennedys album. It's called "Give Me Convenience or Give Me Death."
Yeah. What did Janis Joplin say? Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. That's why we don't have freedom, because we have too much to lose. we have too many attachments to bullshit that we are afraid that we might have to give up. I don't want to lose Instagram and Snapchat. I don't want to do that because I won't be free.
Somebody needs to write that down.
Enslaving you.
I've always thought, what would happen to humanity if Planets of the Apes happened and everything went out? We'd be so fucked, because the electricity, we need absolutely everything. Well, look, majority of the people who don't know how to handle themselves would be screwed. So
sure.
And that they don't know how to detach from an attachment that's parasiting off of them more than anything. So the more you have somebody who is addicted and who is a fiend, if you will. This is the new crack era. The crack epidemic is your cell phone. That's what it is.
For sure.
Absolutely.
If you can't have it, some people go manic and things of that nature. So it's they played a real slick role with using your own entertainment as your demise.
Sure. And it's also feeding into the propaganda too, on how and some of this shit's insidious. But you're absolutely right, Nico. They enslave us by some stupid shit. I cannot believe the things that people are attached to. It drives me crazy. But I do want to return to the economic idea just briefly, and say that that I think that Voltairine hits this nail on the head. She doesn't say in that quote that we opened up with that we will wind up with a new economy based in socialism. Yeah, she doesn't say that. She says a new economy. In other words, a new idea, something that is different, something that isn't what we've conventionally used. She's talking about new things. Like I said, none of us, kind of like Konkin talked about, this beast that we're fighting has existed for 10,000 years. There is a piece of every single, all of these heroes that we hold up in anarchism, whether it's Spooner or it's Rothbard or it's Ken Tucker, whoever it is, right? It doesn't matter who these heroes are. They're not perfect, and they don't know everything, and every one of them has a little piece of statism in their mind. And when we're arguing over economics, when all of our economics from the beginning of time has been manipulated by the state, we do not know. We have no idea what it's
if humanity has original sin at all, it's statism. Anyway, go ahead, Siobhan. Sorry.
Ever since the founding of civilization and the cities and and definitely the nation states, the markets have always been controlled. There's always been a level of freedom, at your farmer's market, 1,000 years ago or something like that, or if you were bartering here and there, not using cash as a medium. A good point I think to bring up is that there's always been markets. People have always been out to sell stuff. Sure. People have always been growing stuff. The artisans, they've always been making stuff. Back in the day, guy was making shoes. He was a cobbler. They were doing this, they were doing that, but they weren't necessarily capitalists per se, because capitalism, as we understand it, almost always has the hierarchy in it. It's got the voluntary hierarchy in it, where there's somebody at the top that ends up reaping the profits from it, and essentially using people as the means of production. And ever since the time of mercantilism, feudalism faded away and the manor faded away, but then you had the mercantilism, which actually started working with the state in England in the first form of cronyism. And out of that came the capitalism as we know it, where, we were essentially just chewing people up because, you had the industrial age and everything was moving so fast. And, the poor really didn't have any place to go. I mean, it was either literally work or starve. You hear people talk about work or starve now, but really those are just words. But if you're talking about back in the day, I mean, work or starve was no bullshit. Proudhon said something. He said, a famished stomach knows no morality. So, if you look at a lot of the crime in the world, it's done by people that are poor.
Yeah, the majority of the crimes happen in the poorest neighborhoods. If you go all over the world, it's nothing new. So you point that out. And
I know it's the way it's always been, and that's why the prisons are full of people from poor neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, to counter that a bit, the biggest crimes are not committed by the
super wealthy people.
Right, it's committed by the super wealthy.
They don't count though. They go to the country clubs.
Right,
they're bored. That's what they're doing. They're bored. That's why they commit the crimes.
I think we're talking about people who don't even go to country clubs. They do other shit. They're in clubs that we've never heard of before.
Yeah, to pretend disease. They pretend disease that everybody's locked in their house for.
Right. I want to say this though. Like back to I did this earlier with the thing about when you order a pizza and all that stuff. How that stuff is. Marcus, you said we're talking about something that has never existed before. I disagree. I think it exists in real time. We're using it on a day-to-day basis. And Sven, you talked about this when you talked about the leasing. Even in our everyday lives, I lend a friend $100, $500, whatever. I don't expect him to pay me back with a bunch of interest.
Right.
It's just like I'm trying to help him out. He needs a little bit of help. I'm going to help him out. And if we actually get to a place where, and then I still think the closer you stick together, and the more you find people in your local community you can barter with, who you can trade with, who you can do things where you don't involve the greenback, you don't involve the taxation monster, you keep the parasite that is this oligarchy that runs all this shit. You keep that out of your interactions as much as possible. You actually are living this economic system that Marcus said doesn't exist. I'm just fucking with Marcus because he opened himself up there. But you see what I'm saying? Like there's examples of this shit works and it doesn't fucking destroy the person who lends the person the money.
That's right. It's true. Our interactions, are usually, as somebody says, I think it's somebody in this show says, most of our interactions are based upon anarchy without any oversight, amongst involuntary actions of mutual beneficence, usually, for the most part.
For sure.
And if you do look at a historical context, if you take it all the way back to the ancestral times with quote unquote primitive peoples. There was what they call primitive communism where, people did actually look out for each other and they did take care of each other. The old didn't have to go hunt, the men hunted and everybody kind of, everybody knew their roles and they kind of did what they did and everybody helped each other. And I think if we can get back to a place where we actually give a shit about each other, I think we can get to something like that. Obviously, we live in a technocratic society, and as of now, there's really no going back from that. But this also opens up more venues. As long as we still have access to the means of communication, which we still do at this time, until they really start cracking down on people and expunging us from the web servers and stuff like that. Right. We can still interact with people. We can still make these types of transactions on a day-to-day basis. Like I said, I don't really know anything about crypto, but it looks like something I want to get into because it's a way to break away from the money monopoly. But every day,
for sure,
every day we do things and we're not coerced to do them.
Right.
Every day we do things with people that, like the people I work with. I look at them as individuals. I don't look at this guy. He's a Republican. This guy here, he's a Democrat. Okay, so honestly, yeah, their political ideologies are fucking cringe. But I'm not going to. They're not a walking ideology to me. Okay, they're a
Yeah,
person.
right. They're a person. Yeah.
But my God, I mean, if they keep at it and that's what they talk about, well, maybe that'll change. Okay. But I have honest interactions with people. You know, they know who I am. I know who they are. We work together to get stuff done, and we become friends. You know, and we, you know, the only thing we have in common are like, you know, sci-fi movies and guns. You know,
Right.
and other than that, we're worlds apart. Yeah.
That's
So I mean, yeah,
something
every day I'm trying to work somebody that I work with every day. You know, I'm trying to work a different angle on different people on a regular basis. You just got to know what angle to work them, and then you get them a little bit closer to thinking about how their rights are trampled on a daily basis. And you can see that glimmer. It wants to shine. It wants to shine. Just gotta throw some gasoline on it.
Right. What were you going to say, Nico?
I was going to say that's what
Nico, you want to say?
That's. Am I muted?
No, you're there. Marcus didn't hear you.
I'm
You're
sorry,
muted.
I cut you off, man, with my big mouth.
Oh no!
you're good.
You had every right. You had every right to continue. I was just going to piggyback off of what you said. Is you come at them at a different angle, and it's like when it comes to dealing with anybody and everybody, it's basically coming to them as human, as being as human as possible, with no unnecessary intent towards the interaction. It's as genuine as possible. I forgot the guy who we had on, but he's more on the conservative side, and you know, he says he helps people out, and then he doesn't mention any kind of you know, political background or anything. And I think people just need to eradicate that from themselves. The only kind of background they really need to have is their cultural background from their families. Like that's the only thing that really needs to hold root, because at the end of the day, with each different family being from different areas, you're going to have different political views because how you guys grew up from a certain culture. It's always going to be a jumbling and melting pot of different ideologies of how life is lived. So therefore, and it's like so mind-boggling. Like America is the melting pot of places. Why wouldn't you think we wouldn't have a melting pot of different ideologies of how we're supposed to think and move? Every other place around this planet has a specific order of way they live besides the tyrannical governments ran by them, but their cultures, their religions, their foods, you know, their sports, everything around it, it all implies a different form of discipline or a different form of thought processes to move on your everyday life. So, you know, the whole ideology of the left or right is most definitely something that is a great tool to be like, oh yeah, we play with these thoughts better. We play with these ideologies better, and we'll give them to you guys, the people who grew up more so on these principles, opposed to the other side of people. And it's like a big ass tennis match where like you're never going to end. You're never going to end. You guys are going back and forth, and you're on fire. Like
it's a tennis match, but the rackets are tethered together with a string, and the ball's on that string, and it's just the ball's never gonna land. It's never gonna go out of bounds. It's just gonna stay between the two rackets. The ball's a grenade. It's about to go off at some point. No, I mean I said a while back, like with all this stuff that's going down all over the country. Because like Louisiana just reinstituted a mask mandate. New York is they're doing this thing where you have to, if you don't get the jab, you can't go anywhere. You can't eat. You can't go to a gym or any of this shit. And I would say people have already started like mass migrating out of New York to Florida. It's happening even more now. And then like people are moving to Texas. And I just think we're getting to the point where very soon, like, I put a clock of 25 years or less when the great divorce happens in this country, and this thing splits up into some either like loose collection of conservative and a loose collection of liberal states, or a complete dissolution into just a bunch of states that just kind of like a balkanization, leave each other mostly alone. But I don't know. Like we'll see. We'll see how the next little stretch plays out. But I wanted to touch on something that you were saying about the old like tribal cultures and everything. And I really think like if you think about that setup, like that's a very good voluntary example of how
absolutely
we can really do things in a way that is the most effective for our progeny, for like our legacy, for everything that if you're trying to build humanity towards an ideal, the men are the strongest and most physically capable of like, it's just like genetically, like, look, let's face it, like, by and large, the men need to be going out hunting and doing that shit and building the structures and all that kind of stuff. And women are really good at some of the other things. Now, obviously, there's exceptions to all these things.
Sure.
You're gonna have some women who can go hunt and kick ass, and you can have some dudes who can throw down on the grill. Okay, cool. But by and large, having the men go do that, having the women take care of the home and making the clothing and making sure the children are looked after and cared for and nurtured. And then have the men be there when the kids get to that certain age and they need that next level of leadership, especially the boys, to become men. And then the elders are there, and you don't make the elders do all that stuff that's going to kill them, because you need the elders there to impart their wisdom. They live through all kinds of shit, and you need them there to be able to entertain the kids with old stories and to give them wisdom for like why they shouldn't go near that beehive.
I would like to add, we need to change the narrative of, oh, well, the women stay home because we're an emotional age and everybody feels some type of way. Give them a reason to make them want to stay home. You guys are in charge of our future. You give it a title such as heavy as that. You guys and the old elders, because women love to talk. Let's not bullshit. So if they love to talk,
says a dude on camera talking with three other dudes. Like,
look, I finished working out, so I got things to do. Okay,
I got you.
But the thing is that when you give them an environment where they can talk, where they can mingle, and on top of that, drop more wisdom and inspire and incorporate a lot more values into a family. Ooh, I didn't like that. Ooh, stop it, Dad. Oh. My bad.
Yeah, you're frozen up.
Yeah, you froze up.
I can still hear you.
Oh, your dad's. Yeah, I hear your dad's
in the backyard. Man, the power might go out, boys. Woo.
It's all good.
But when you are able to impart that knowledge and that wisdom amongst the future and change the ideology, oh, well, I stay home and I gotta cook and clean. No, because at the end of the day, it's not the thought of, oh, I stay home and cook and clean. I understand you want to have a task at hand and you want to feel important where you get your own money and your own bread. But when you think about that, none of that shit matters. It only really mattered about family. You only need the bread so you can go out and live your luxurious lifestyle, or if not, take care of your family, if not both. So it's they're too focused on a materialistic gain on the whole principle of it, opposed to, oh, I can't just leave it to materialistic. There's a lot more that trickle down there. But when you give it a much purposeful title, such as caring for the future, or, making sure that everybody stays fucking alive, that changes the whole entire idea.
No, but it's not just that. Like, women, and this is the thing I think got lost. And I'm glad you pointed out that, like, giving it a place of reverence rather than this like it's like you're a barefoot and pregnant slave staying at home. Women for millennia have shaped culture by the way that they have instructed children.
Facts.
Absolutely. And the thing is, Amber faces this all the time because her preference is to stay home, and her preference is to do things like cook. This is what she wants to do. This isn't Mark telling her that, hey, you got to do this. No, this is what she wants to do.
Right.
She wants to go to be the lead in the garden. She wants to she's been canning all day today. She wants to do that, enjoys doing that. And who are we to tell her that all that hard ass work, and she works a hell of a lot harder than I do. I might pay more of the bills than she does because my job pays a little bit more money, but at the end of the day, she does a hell of a lot more hard work than I do. And to tell her that all that hard work of raising my daughter, of gardening, of canning, of fixing dinner, that's less than me sitting my fat ass at a computer all fucking day talking to people.
Hell no.
No, look,
Right.
my wife left her job of she had been working there for 10 years. And she left that job, left for 8 years. And it was, we knew it was going to hurt financially. We knew it was going to be, we were going to have to make some sacrifices and everything, but she did it for our kids. She wanted to be there when they were little and they were in their formative years. She didn't want them to be raised by some kind of daycare or something. I saw him say that. Yeah, I'm not hiding anything. But anyway, she wanted to be there with the kids, but she didn't want somebody else raising her children. And I did whatever I could in the meantime to make that possible, because I wanted the same for my kids. So anyway, I'm sorry we've been hogging the mic. Sven, what's your take on this?
Well, actually, I wanted to talk about the primitive communism for a second. So, Nico and Marcus and I, we're pretty much from the same part of the world. I'm in Ohio, so if you look at like the Algonquin tribes in the area, I mean, they very much. Nobody told anybody what to do. It was all voluntary. There was a hereditary peace chief but he didn't have like any actual authority. He just like, him and a group of the elders, they would come up with, they would make like the tough decisions. But nobody was actually bound by any of these things. But then like when the shit hit the fan, there was they looked to somebody who was a badass, and that was the war chief. And so if you look at that, I mean, that is like a great example of anarchism. And I've used that for, 15 years when I try to preach the gospel to people about anarchism, is that it's actually been done before without coercion, without people telling people what to do, and like I said, when these decisions were made, you didn't have to follow them. I mean, you voluntarily follow the decisions that the elders made, or you didn't. It was that simple.
And their entire leadership was based on it. This is something that I've talked about quite a bit as well, because I did a article for Adam on Red Cloud, one of the Sioux leaders of the Sioux, and the same deal that he amassed a huge army, all voluntary. Everybody, every different tribes. It wasn't just the Sioux. There was the Cheyenne. There were a bunch of different tribes that gathered right behind his ass because he looked over at America and said, "Oh shit,
right.
These white men plan on enslaving us, motherfuckers." Fuck that. And they,
as Daryl likes to post in the Anarch chat, these white men are dangerous. From
it was the same thing in Ohio with the Confederation between the Shawnee, the Miami, and the Delaware. They made their stand in western Ohio, and and that was all voluntary. Yeah. So it's been done before. Voluntary societies have existed. We just have to figure out a way to transfer that into the age of technology that we live in. Something else I did want to talk about. We were talking about. I was talking about how I look at everybody as individuals, right? Regardless of how terrible I think their ideologies are. I mean, we need to transplant that, and I do transplant that into like on my Twitter page, where I try to talk to people, and I got people coming in there and sharing my stuff, and and then they talk shit, and so I'll just casually stop by and be like, "Oh, hey, thanks for sharing," or I'll just strike up a conversation. Like someone's like, "Oh, that you must have got that meme from Reddit," and I'm like, "Well, actually, I've never been on Reddit," and just just try to make a conversation with them, and try to treat them like people until you can't.
Right.
And so,
For sure.
I've never really had my flag in the ground when it comes to where my anarchism is, because I've always considered myself a pretty pragmatic person. I feel like I have to be flexible to exist in a state of society where, I engaged in a form of agorasm for like 20 years. So I've lived on those margins before, and I learned how to be flexible. And when I bring that into the Unity group, into the Unity Coalition, I understand that not everybody's going to be down with it. And if someone comes right in and starts talking shit, I'm going to try not to come back and talk shit right away. I try to treat them like a person. I try to be on even footing with them. But it's hard. I mean, sometimes I see these people coming on there and they start talking shit. It's like, dude, I've been studying anarchism for, over 25 years. I've been a member of the fucking proletariat for 36 years. Don't try to tell me about life. You're sitting on your fucking parents' couch, on Twitter.
Yeah, like Marx. One of my favorite Sterner things that Magnus brought up was Sterner telling Marx he needs to get off the couch, more or less, which I found hilarious.
Told Marx to get off the couch.
Yeah, because Sterner knew Marx, and he basically told Sterner. He basically said, and I don't remember the exact quote, but he more or less said that Marx guy needs to get a job.
That's funny. That's funny. That's very funny.
I do have a couple.
He was never a laborer. He was always an intellectual, and then I don't think for the last 30 years of his life he actually held a quote unquote job. I mean, he was like the head of the International, and and he was always working and writing and propagandizing. So I mean, like, he never labored, but he was an intellectual, so you can take that as it's worth.
For sure. A couple things I want to add to what you've talked about. The first thing I want to mention when we're dealing with Native Americans is that a lot of people say, yeah, but look what happened to the Native Americans. Okay, first of all, the Sioux Indians won a 2-year war against the United States government and its army. They won. Then the United States government had to surrender unconditionally to Red Cloud. So
and that was without the British.
Correct. And so they had to surrender to Red Cloud. And so that's one. So when you look at that and say, oh, but look what happened to the Indians. Yeah, they whooped ass. The Indians kicked the shit out of the American government. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, they didn't have the resources. I mean, that's kind of like with the North and the South in the Civil War. I mean, the South did not have the resources. They really didn't have a chance. They just didn't know it. And then not knowing it gave them a chance.
Right. And they also,
and when you look at the Native Americans, I mean, they had no manufacturing capability. I mean, the best they could do is like melt lead balls. That was like the best they could do. Everything else, I mean, maybe they could work on some guns here and there, but obviously they had like zero manufacturing capability. They were getting all that from the British and stolen arms from the Americans.
Right. And the second, you're absolutely right. And the second thing I wanted to bring up is that we do have, you say, could we do this in modern society? It'd be a hell of a lot easier to do this in modern society. Because people want to say that, who would build the roads? Well, the roads aren't going anywhere.
They're already there for one.
Right. Yeah, the internet is there. It would take a hell of a lot to take it completely down, and generally the people most likely to take it down are the state. So, at the end of the day, it would.
And that might actually be doing us a favor if we're being honest. Like if the state was like, "Hey, no more internet," we'd be like, "All right, bet. Let's go
tomorrow."
Libraries.
Then we'd have to actually organize our communities.
For sure.
Yeah, exactly right.
Again.
For
Everybody
sure.
would start reading books.
Yep, it'd be great.
Remember those days?
Yeah, and what I also want to bring into that is, aside from the primitive nature, a lot of what Sven has described as mutualism, I've witnessed, and that is in the Amish community. A lot of people want to call them communists. They're not actually communists. Much of what he described, they do. You take the requirement that they
that's why Marcus looks like he looks. He's trying to become Amish.
You should see my son Nathan. He that dude might as well be.
All you have to do is shave that damn mustache off, and you're
grow
golden,
it
Marcus.
Down here like Gandalf and braid it up.
Right. But the Amish got a lot of this shit licked. They know. He was talking about the bank. That's kind of how they handle shit. If you sure. If you need a house, you go and you work and you do your thing. But if you need a new barn, they just kind of get all together and go and build you a barn. Suddenly you have a barn, and so that shit just kind of happens. And I think that brings us to that, to the ideas that these are all. They want to point out, they want to say that that none of this can happen. And even we, including myself, have alluded to that this would be difficult, that this would be hard, that this is new, blah, 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 blah. But the thing is, it's not. None of the part of the propaganda is that this is hard. It's not. It's hard to keep this bullshit going. That's what's hard.
Yeah, no shit. Look at all the resources that the state puts into holding itself up. I mean, it's unbelievable.
So we've talked a lot about politics do you guys want to move into?
Yeah, can we? Because this might be a good segue to get there. Because I got to say this. Since Nico went ahead and mentioned Gandalf, I have to. It reminded me, and so I have to read this little meme that you posted earlier today, or that you retweeted or something. That just about fucking brought me to tears because my daughter's she's going through it right now. This is like she's like she was saying today. She's like, I don't even want to have kids anymore. Like I don't want like this is I'm not raising my kids. I'm not raising kids in this. Yeah. This is bullshit. Like this is terrible. She's like, you don't know what it's like to be a kid growing up, going through this bullshit where like they didn't get to see their friends for months, and then you know what I mean. Like there's all this shit. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so Marcus posted this and tried to make a grown man cry. It's this quote from from the Fellowship of the Ring. In the Lord of the Rings. Anyway, Gandalf says, "I wish it need not have happened in my time," said Frodo. Or no, Frodo says that. "I wish it need not have happened in my time." "So do I," said Gandalf, "and so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that has been given us." So, with that, let's shift gears maybe and go into, and I'll try to cheer things up now because Sven said that I had a great face for radio before we started.
Voice for radio.
I don't care. I took it as face. I'm going to do this to you. So this is our guest, Sven. So he's a. And from what I understand, from a spirituality standpoint, this might be something that you can connect with. But anyway, that was just a joke. Anyway, I'm done with my jokes. So I had to keep myself from crying. So I went with the jokes.
There you go. Whatever it takes, man. Yeah, we all got to survive one way or another.
That's right. So Marcus, lead us down this path of spirituality that we were heading down.
For sure. And one of the most people that have paid attention to this broadcast, if you will, for a while know that we talk quite often about spirituality. We've had Christians on here. We've had a variety of different people. One of the things that's also interesting about Sven is he is also a pagan, and many people would consider me a pagan. I don't know that I would identify as that because I practice voodoo and I kind of believe in a monotheistic God, but that monotheistic God has faces. Anyway, long story short, Sven does tend to have a pagan belief, and I'd like to kind of get into how his paganism and his religious beliefs influence his political beliefs and his life in general. Could you kind of go into that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Paganism might be a bit of a reach. I really take a lot of things from a lot of places. I've taken. I was raised a Catholic, and somewhere in there I fell away. And when I really decided to start thinking about spiritual things again, I really went down a pretty deep hole. Pretty heavily into Buddhism. I discovered Brazilian candomblé, which is kind of like their version of voodoo. I can't say I'm like a practitioner or anything like that, but from a philosophical standpoint, I'm very into it. Just like I'm also something of a Tolstoyan, pretty heavily into what Leo Tolstoy used to teach when it came to spiritual matters. He was essentially a Christian, but he looked at Christ as like a philosopher. And that's pretty much how I approach, that's my approach to religion. I'm really not concerned about this big afterlife and all this kind of stuff. I'm more concerned about living the best life that I can every day. And what I've done is that I've taken all these things from like Theravada Buddhism, Tolstoyan Christianity, my dabbling into the West African influenced religions. And I just kind of bring it all together into something that helps me be a better person, be the person that I want to be, treat people like humans, don't, live, I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe, I guess. But yeah, at the very core of it is just to be the best person I can be and treat people the way that I think they deserve to be treated, because we're all in this together. We all have the same soul stuff within us, and it's just a matter of connecting with the soul stuff in others, and you realize that we're the same. So yeah, mostly Tolstoy, and then like a very strong shot of Buddhism, and then, like I said, some of the Candomblé too.
Nice. I just noticed an awful lot of like Teutonic Norse kind of symbolism in what you espouse, though.
Oh yeah, well that's I guess that's just another approach, just another part of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when I look at the old religions, or when I look at religions in general, I approach them as stories from my life,
Mm-hmm.
as parables, I guess, if you will, because that's what a lot of myths, myths have meaning. Myths aren't just myths.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. So I try to translate all those myths into something that I can relate to day to day. And a lot of the Norse stuff is that I guess I am fascinated with the Norse mythologies and the German mythologies. I guess because it's genetic. My great grandfather was from Prussia, so yeah, that stuff's pretty deep inside of me. And so yeah, I guess I'm just fascinated with the Vikings. They were like the last pagans, in Europe, pretty much. And yeah, so I can't really say that I'm a pagan per se. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it. For me, I understand. For me, I like what Voltaire said about religion. He said that his religion was to find God in nature and be a good man. And I think that's really, really good. Just kind of covers it. Find God in nature and be a good man works for me pretty good. And but one of the things that I've noticed, and I think that all four of us fit this, is that people that question. It doesn't matter if it's God or if it's government. We just question.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal. That really led me to my philosophical and religious beliefs, my metaphysical beliefs, I guess you can say, is questioning things. Because, everybody comes to that point in their life where they're really searching and they're trying to figure things out. Like, I had one part of my life really figured out, like the anarchism part.
Mm-hmm.
I knew where I was going with that. I knew that was the way. I know that, the state is coercive and evil. And I knew that, and I was never a big fan of the boss either. What can I say? But there was still some parts of my life that weren't solidified. And it was, when was that? Probably around 2003 or so. I really started looking into the spiritual side of things. And that's when I really did my deep dive into the Tolstoy. And yeah, he was an anarchist too, in case you didn't know that. He just didn't call himself an anarchist. He wrote an essay called On Anarchy. And yeah, he taught me a lot of things. And I think that's probably what also led me to dabble in Buddhism as well, was his mindset, because it's pretty similar to some of the Theravada Buddhism.
Do you have a specific favorite that you like to really follow up with on a consistent basis? If not oh, go ahead.
Not really, not at the time. I have read a lot of Christian anarchist writers, but not so much as ones that are wrapped up in the metaphysical aspects of it. Like I said, I try to approach all those as philosophies and that speak to my soul. But if I had to say one spiritual writer, it would definitely be Tolstoy.
That's interesting. I'm going to have to look into him a little deeper.
Me too.
Scratched the surface with him.
Yeah, he talks a lot about social issues that he saw. He had he had a guilty conscience. I guess part of it was because he was Christian. That's how he was brought up. And then the other part is that he was rich. He was born rich, and then he was an extremely successful writer. So he was rich again. And so you could really see it in his writing that he's trying to make up. He's trying to give something back to the world. So he spent all these years writing about, like War and Peace, Anna Karenina, where a lot of those things were in the back of his head, but they weren't to the fore of his mind. But now, when you dive into like the last 30 years of his life and all the writings that he did then, most of them are nonfiction, and most of them deal with the societal issues, religious issues, and matters of the soul, like how what you feel inside, what's going on inside of you, and and so it's pretty awesome. It's pretty good stuff.
Nice. And well, again, I think that this often is just the way of things. I think that what winds up happening, whether you come at this, looking at maybe becoming an anarchist and then looking at spiritual things based off of your anarchism, or you, for my case, I was into spirituality and started looking into anarchism. What I was trying to find was purity, and what I was trying to find was goodness. Ethics.
Ain't that the truth though? Like I've made that argument a lot that I think, especially like when you look at kids, like that constant questioning, why? Mm-hmm. What they're looking for is that one rock solid thing that actually doesn't wash away when it's questioned.
It fulfills their curiosity.
For sure. And I one of the things that I think that anarchists add to the world is, you don't have to, and this isn't to throw shade at Catholics, or because Chad's a very good, example of a fantastic Catholic, and there are a lot of them out there. But you don't have to
me
go
shooting the rod at you, double fingered. Like I
did.
was doing that on purpose.
I just
because you were telling me I was a good Catholic.
Right.
it's the best Catholic thing I could do. Right.
Right. For sure.
Sorry.
but no, you don't have to answer to a priest to find God. You don't have to answer to a president to find order in your life. All of this is anti-authoritarianism. It's one of the reasons why I really do find a home in Afro-Caribbean religion, is because it's decentralized. And I really find that the Catholics, for instance, using that example, they are typically used as an example of a centralized religious system, but it doesn't have to be that way, because those saints are right there.
Right. I mean, if you look at people like the Catholics are pretty diverse. I mean, you have like the liberation theologies of South America, and then you have the ultra conservative traditionalist types. So I mean, there's a pretty wide spectrum right there. I mean, there's been some great Catholic writers like the Berrigan brothers. They were great dissidents back during the Vietnam War, and Daniel Berrigan. I mean, he wrote against the state and against power for 40, 50 years.
Wow.
So yeah, he's a great writer.
Nice. So, are we good with this subject, Chad?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I was thinking of kind of delving a little deeper into more, like, not just so much about the who we've studied or anything like that, and like the overarching philosophy, but like I wanted to get into kind of where there's been a discussion about and you talked about myths and how there's a reason some of those things exist. I think in a lot of cases, some of that stuff is either just glorifying and embellishing maybe a little bit a story of something or someone that actually existed, or something that happened, or an ideal that we should strive for, or something like that. But I think narrative,
or a fable to teach us a lesson.
To teach a lesson, exactly. But I think narrative plays a very strong role in how we move through the world, and that's why I think back to our conversation earlier about whether it's Netflix, Hollywood, you name it, all the entertainment, music, and everything else, the news stations and everything, narratives are pumped into people's homes, pumped into their eardrums through, radio stations and AirPods and whatever else. The narrative that we can start to maybe build for ourselves to build our way out of this, and the things that we can start to sort of predictively program. I mean, I hate that the state has these weapons and uses them, but damn if I'm not, like, I'm on their internet using this shit. Like I'm I'm on Al Gore's internet right now talking about this stuff, and I'm on I don't know, George Bush's YouTube or whoever it's a very important thing for us to not lose sight of, that narrative plays a huge role in how people move when they are subjected to stimuli. We're programmed. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jacques Ellul wrote he wrote a ton of stuff about propaganda. He wrote a very famous book. It's called Propaganda, and the formation of men's ideas, I think it's called. And he talked about how we were subject to, and this guy died like in the late 80s. And he wrote about how we were subject to nonstop propaganda like 24 hours a day. And this was before the internet. Right. So now it's like, not only are we subjected to this propaganda, they are also listening and watching every step that we make. Mm-hmm. So it is twofold what it used to be. Now, as for starting our own narrative, I mean, like I've been doing for a long time, probably about 25 years. I've been talking shit to people about the state and what can we do about it. Mm-hmm. And it's sad because so often you just hear, well, that's just the way it is. You know, you try to bitch about, man, hey, man, you're getting fucked by the boss, man. What's the matter with that? How long are we going to let that go on? Are we just going to sit around here and do that? And everybody is just like, well, it's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. You know, they hold the power. We're just the employees. And it's like, with a defeatist mentality like that, I mean, we're absolutely not going to go anywhere. So somehow we need to change the narrative into that we are the ones driving the bus, because the little people of this world are the ones that make it roll. I mean, it's just like in Fight Club. You know, you go into one of those monologues that Brad Pitt has about how, you know, we're the little people. We're the ones down here doing your bank transactions. You know, we're washing your clothes. We're cooking your food. We outnumber the forces of the state. You know, I don't know what it is. Probably like 2,000 to 1 between bureaucrats, cops, army. We outnumber them immensely. We just have to find a way to organize that power in a decentralized platform and take our power back.
Well, this is why I think that narrative is so important, is because I go back to, because people have made this comparison a lot of times, and like what you were just talking about, that old scene from A Bug's Life where the ants decide that they're going to revolt against the grasshoppers. Here's the problem right now. Half the ants want to feed the other half of the ants to the grasshoppers.
Oh my God, that's so accurate.
Because of the masks and the vaccine and everything else. So narrative is so important, because we've got to, and I think memes have played, like, people talk shit about memes, but look, a meme is a picture is worth 1,000 words. A meme is worth, like, I don't know, at least 300,000 words. You know, something. It's more than 1,000. That's for goddamn sure. It's not quite as much as a video, but it's damn near close. We really need to work on narrative being part of, and that's why I think, you know, people talk shit about me and Marcus. You know, what are we doing? Well, this is what we're doing. We're trying to help lead this narrative, and we have a lot of friends who have joined. You see them in the chat. We got Tim, Ebony, Daryl, and those guys, and you know, and thank you for coming on. I know you've kind of been seeing this stuff from a distance and everything. It's really fun to engage with people and to start finding each other. I feel like every time I find someone else who thinks the way we do, even if we don't agree on everything, I feel like I found another family member to help out when the fucking apocalypse comes. And Nico was going to say something, and I cut him off. So, Nico, what were you going to say?
I was going to just say, start with community, going back to his point of, I forgot the point, but I remember that there was something about communities, and it's a slight suggestion. You know, I always mention, go out to your communities and things of that nature. My next door neighbor is the GOAT herself. Like, she's helped me with my guarding a ton. So your best bet when all this shit goes down would be your community. I would say on a random day of the random week, you better go make a friend of somebody down the street. Just go do it for the fuck of it. Just ring the doorbell.
We just moved
and all that. Oh, well, that's perfect. That is perfect.
I know, that's what I'm thinking. I was thinking the same thing. We just moved to the complete other side of the city, and so it's like a fresh slate. We know our two direct neighbors are a couple of retiree ladies. So that's as far as I've gotten.
Hey, you know,
Well, actually, my buddy lives like 2 blocks away. A guy I've been training with for about the past 8 years. We just happened to end up at this house, and it was like 2 blocks away from him. So,
oh, that's
Nice.
love. Look,
yeah,
all you need
yeah,
to do is fresh
he's
apple
really
pies.
got between work and his family, he's got his hands full with 2 little kids. But yeah, it's great knowing that somebody's right there.
Yeah,
That's
and
a start.
some credit to Glenn Beck, because he where I first saw this very similar idea in one of his books, and I don't remember which one it was. And yes, at one point I was a neocon, and Glenn Beck was helpful in, believe it or not, in leading me towards being an anarchist. But one of the things that he said was that if you move into a neighborhood, and you want to move into a neighborhood that that when people move in, they give brownies, be the guy that gives brownies. It's that simple. Start going out and doing those
Kind of
things.
brownies.
It's Marcus we're talking about.
Right.
Come on now.
You gotta check that out. When I hand you a brownie, you want to say what's in that.
I'll have just a little itty bitty bit.
Marcus will have to go wake them up to find out if they got the brownies.
Right.
I
But-
think they got the brownies, Marcus. They're
Yeah,
asleep.
for sure.
Yeah, so being part of the Unity Coalition, it's really, I don't know, it's really felt like it's given me a lot of drive because for a long time I really didn't do much outside of talk shit. And I had some pages on Facebook, with some fairly decent followings, but it was all pretty left oriented, and I couldn't make any headway on any coalition building over there. And then I ended up on IG, and I met a lot of the guys over there. And we all got booted off there and came on with Twitter. So, it's a great place to find allies and stuff, but we've got to find a way to branch off of Twitter and into the internet and try to get on the ground somehow. I know we've got we got the Stop the Damn Wars coming up in September. I'm trying to see what I can do about getting there. It's sandwiched in between a couple of dates that I have, but I'm going to see what I can do because
Nice.
I feel like I've been an anarchist. Punk rock is what led me to anarchy, and I didn't even like punk rock when I was in high school. But one of the 2 punks in my high school tried explaining anarchy to me one day, and all I heard was no rules, and I'm like, all right, man, I'm in. And then 10 years later, that's when I discovered that it was more to that.
Yeah.
And then even after that, it's like outside of, maybe I've turned, 5-6 people, towards anarchism, maybe planted a few more seeds here and there, but I just really haven't done that much. And so I think that now I want to do more. You know what I'm saying? I want to do more, but I also don't want a big ass target on my back.
Yeah, it's tough.
Look at, someone like Magnus, he can't even get laid. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want that, but
Poor Magnus.
I did think it was funny.
That dude needs to get laid.
I did think that it was funny the other day when he put the thing out where he said, all right, what should I say? And it was like a four choice, multiple choice. He was like, I'm about to just, go straight. I just told this person that I met on Tinder or wherever it was. I said, Google me. And he said, all right, here's the 4th choice. And it was like, they're cool with it. They ghost me. They, kindly decline, or they call me an asshole or whatever, something like that. It was funny. I think they ended up just like saying, you know what, something came up, peace.
Yeah
Right.
But you're right.
I told him to use an alias. It is what it is.
Damn near have to.
See, I'm lucky. I
That-
married an
that'll
anarchist, so I'm good.
Yeah, when they have the right
Yeah, that
ideals,
is good. Now
similar ideals.
my significant other, she comes from more of a conservative background, and she was a registered Republican, but she actually voted Libertarian the past 2 times.
Nice.
So I've had a little bit of influence on that, and I'm actually thinking about joining the party. Not that I'm a huge believer. I'm not a huge believer in party politics. But I don't know. I think that maybe every movement needs like a legitimate front. If you look to the past, you'll have like revolutionary movements that actually have like legitimate political parties attached to them. And So, and all the ones on the left, they're either communist
Mm-hmm.
or they're just too, they're too split. Whereas
Yeah.
I think all of the anti-authoritarian, like the Libertarian Party, feels like it's got more of a, even though there's a lot of fighting in it and a lot of bullshit, which doesn't mean jack shit to me. But there's still something there, and I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. I mean, I'm already in a couple of organizations. Like I'm a wobbly.
I don't know what that is.
A member of the IWW.
What's the IWW?
I don't know what that is.
International Workers of the World.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
It's a big leftoid organization.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not active in it or anything, but it's something that I was introduced to by some of the locals around here, and so that's like political disorganization. So maybe I could be part of an actual political organization. So
don't expect them to be organized. Just as warning.
But I think what he's saying, he's touching on something that we've talked about before. That it's important. There's so many different fronts to this battle. Mm-hmm. This big boss has there are a bunch of little weak points that we can all strike at. Right. And we find our own ways to attack it. And I don't, I think that the party, even to the extent that it's been largely completely ineffective politically, seriously, like you win a couple of little races here and there, don't really get much accomplished. There are some victories. I'm not going to deny there have been some things where they have either pulled legislation in a more libertarian direction by just being there, making the noise, and making one of the other two candidates kind of pull things in that direction, or by actually getting shit done. But it's very, very few and far between. But they do serve as a great mouthpiece if the right person or people are being the mouthpiece. Right. The problem has been they've had some really shitty people being that mouthpiece in years past, especially when you've had some really, really ripe opportunities. I don't think it gets any more right than Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump and then Joe Biden versus Donald Trump as like prime opportunities to capitalize. And it was Gary Johnson, what is Aleppo, and Joe Jorgensen. Oh, you asked me to leave the debate? Okay, I'll leave. Like, bruh, come on.
Right. And the good news is I don't think they're going to do that this time. This time. So.
Yeah, I think this time we're going to unfuck this shit.
Right. I think this time you're going to be looking at somebody, that, of course, Adam and I and Adam and all of us, Nico, me and Chad are all friends. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I'm going to be hoping Adam does well. But Dave Smith's good. He's not perfect, but neither's Adam. And I like Spike Cohen a
really
lot.
Good. He's amazing.
Yeah, I really like Spike a lot. I'm surprised because I'm pretty skeptical, and I guess I just feel like I've been around this shit for so long, and it's kind of made me a little jaded. But when I hear Spike talk and I see some of the stuff that he does, and I'm like, you know what? I think I like this guy.
Yeah, he legitimately challenges the state, and he does it with like wit and like vinegar. Like it's not always like, I don't know. I have respect for Joe Jorgensen, but I'm sorry saying I think it's suboptimal for us to bomb any more countries is not quite the same as like digging in somebody's ass for how much of an asshole they are. Like, no, sometimes you really need to like let people see these people laid bare.
For sure.
Yeah, and then we need someone that's going to do that, and someone that's really sharp. And I think Spike's the guy to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And, he's old enough now to run for president, so I would definitely do some legwork for him.
Sure. Yeah. And I like seeing Maj Toure bantered about as a VP candidate too. And most people don't know this, but I was a part of, and so was Chad, part of trying as much as we could to veer Adam towards Maj. Didn't happen, but they're friends and everything's good. But both Chad and I know we're like, I like Maj.
Yeah, as a VP candidate, as a guy to bring on.
Yeah. Right.
But John McAfee's not a bad choice, but it was like it was kind of like it was almost more of a publicity stunt than an actual like real candidate, because McAfee wasn't going to help you win, and he wasn't going to be anywhere in position to be any. You know what I mean? Like, what was as soon as he gets off the boat, they were gonna arrest him or something like that. I mean, we saw what happened when they
made great TV and all.
Have you ever had a vice president run as vice president across the world somewhere?
No, but I mean, shit, we've been Zoom calling all this whole fucking last year and a half.
We almost did with McAfee, though.
Why not do that for the presidential shit too?
I do want to, for sure. I do want to back up to something that we were talking about earlier, talking about the narrative that Chad was talking particularly about. One of the things I think we need to control when it comes to narrative is right now there are about around average in the United States, 50% of the people telling the government to go fuck themselves about getting a jab. We need to get a hold of that. We have countries like France, Italy, Greece rising up against the government.
The French, I mean, they never stop.
Yes,
right.
I fucking love it. They got the police out
for all the shit,
the regular people.
For all the shit people have talked about the French for years, about like the 1930s. Like, look,
I mean,
the French are less of a bitch than we are now. Yeah, I think the U.S. has become the country that would have bent over and taken it from Hitler at this point.
For sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised.
You know, like that. That's where we are now.
Make an offer that they couldn't refuse, and we probably would.
And France would have been the ones fighting him back, and not appeasing him. Right. Oh man.
So I do think that we need to start controlling the narrative a bit and pushing, and one of the things that I've been pushing for some time is we have to make ourselves palatable. And I'm not talking about changing the message. I'm not talking about, watering it down with some bullshit. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is don't yell at fucking people. Don't be a dick bag. Be nice.
Yeah.
Have a cordial conversation.
Yeah. You can point the stuff out in a very direct or pithy sort of way, but we need to keep respect. And the other thing I would say too is, like to this point about this metaphor of like A Bug's Life, right? So you have, the ants have the numbers to kick the grasshoppers out of their position of fake authority, where they steal our shit and don't work for it, and then they fly off and eat our food that we worked all year for. But the problem that we have is we have half the ants that are like, no, man, the grasshoppers, we love the grasshoppers. Right. You guys should die. You should have to stay in your houses because you don't like the grasshoppers. What we need to do is, instead of just bitching about that and pointing that out, is we also need to provide hope. Like the way that narratives work is they give you a blueprint, they give you a path for what is coming. And so far, the only people giving the blueprint, giving the path for where things are going, are the authoritarians who show you in all these dystopian movies and everything else. They show you a control mechanism, post-apocalyptic type shit where like you're eating out of a dumpster or whatever the fuck. Like you can't it's hard for you to find your family, fucking Terminator type shit. We need to provide. And I'm saying this because I don't have the answer yet, but I'm going to start thinking about like how to actually do this. Some of it is what we're doing with the blog that I'm a part of, Jean Core, where what we're providing is, and Marcus and I started this like right before we brought Nico on, and then when Nico came on, we were like, this is what we're definitely doing. We are from now on, we're not just going to bitch about stuff. We're actually going to work towards solutions and finding ways to build coalitions with people, because that's, I think, starting to teach people, starting to turn the narrative from where we have been led to, hey, look, let's start working. Go visit your local farmer's market. Sure. Start working with some of these people who are doing their own farming, who have their own stuff. Like, and then maybe you can provide something that is of value to them, and you can trade stuff, and you can lean on each other. You get their phone numbers, back channel. Don't necessarily always have to do everything over the internet or go to Walmart for stuff. Fuck Walmart, fuck Lowe's and all this. Like, go to your local people who you're going to keep them from starving and going out of business and then becoming part of the churn that is Walmart. And you keep yourself from being subject to Walmart's mask policy and whatever the fuck else is coming as well. So like we need to start teaching the narrative of where do we go from here? What is the solution and what does the free society look like instead of just state bad all the time? We can still say that's true, but we need to focus on where people can look so that they can start walking in those footsteps.
Yeah, glorify the gold. Don't always, point out the negative. That's what, and then that's what also induces more fear-mongering ideology, because you have so many things that you're trying to worry about, and then all of a sudden you get a whole group that's yelling in your ear, but that don't make no sense to me, Jeffrey. Like, okay, my bad. Here, let's go show you how to, farm some tomatoes or something like that. Give you a better purpose than, you being in conflict of what I disagree with.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we don't have to have the answers right now, but the idea is that we can keep moving forward and trying to find these answers. I'm all about that, because I don't really have the answers either. I mean, starting at the local level, that's one, and try to branch out from there. Like, I guess it was about 12 years ago, I was in this huge Facebook group, and we all said, well, where's everybody from? And that's how I met all these people here in my city. Okay, and so that's an extension of that. So we start small, we keep branching out, and from there we just try to keep moving forward, gaining more momentum, gaining more people, and see what we can do from there.
Sure,
absolutely.
And keep working on the solutions. Keep banging your head.
For sure. So, what are your plans going forward, Sren?
Well, as of right now, I'm going to keep trying to build the coalition. That's what I'm going to be doing online. And I'm going to try to figure out what to do about getting out to DC on the 11th, on September 11th. And around here, I need to get up there. We do it. Somebody said a farmer's market. We have a farmer's market here in our neighborhood, like the first weekend of every month. So trying to know my neighbors, trying to know the people here. I'm going to get in touch with the party here in my county. Now that I moved counties as well, so now I'm in the heart of the city, basically, and just see what the party is about. See what I can do to help. See what I can do, and maybe even to influence it. Because I know the local party is heavily influenced by the Radical Caucus, I believe. So yeah, I'm kind of liking that. And then I'm going to try to start reaching out to some of my friends on the left here in town too. See what I can do about real life coalition building. Because they don't really know all the roles that I've been playing as of late. Because I don't want to be ostracized by them yet, but I want to keep trying to bit by bit try to get in their head. Like I was having this one guy, he's old school Antifa, ex-Marine, and so I'm talking about Rothbard to him. And he's like, yeah, I've read Rothbard, and he's right about the state, but he's a fucking capitalist. And I'm like, yeah. So, I'm just kind of gauging him and some of the other guys that I know. We got together a couple weeks ago, so kind of picking at their heads and see what I can do about building a local coalition. So
nice.
Those looks like my immediate plans.
Nice. Is there anything you'd like to plug other than your Twitter is down below?
Yeah.
Sure. I've got the Anarchy in Gray, Anarchy or Death 1 on Twitter, and I'm also your local left libertarian on Twitter, and I'm also on Instagram as your local left libertarian as well. And I also have a Facebook page for Anarchy or Death. And I think that's it. Yes. Okay. Those are all my plugs.
Nice.
Cool.
So I just wanted to say it's been a great conversation. I did learn a lot from the thing is, I don't like titles, but I guess in many ways, because like a lot of the shit you talked about, I'm like, yep, that's it right there. I may be a mutualist.
Over the past couple months, since I've been with the coalition, I mean, a lot of the people that call themselves ANCAPs, they're not really out to use people. They're not out to use people. They just want laissez-faire is the term that people use, and they just want to be able to do their thing, make their money, sell their wares, and live their life, and without without exploiting other people, even without destroying the environment. Yeah, I mean, these are the conversations.
Just without being exploited too. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, because we all are to an extent. We all are. Let's face it. And I think a lot of the guys that I've talked to, I mean, I've seen some of them go from like yellow to orange, and then or from yellow just to black, because it's realizing that we shouldn't really be using and abusing each other, because we're all in it together. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, mutualism is the way. Well, obviously, I think this is the fucking way. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
I think there's plenty of room for people to work together. And, if we were talking big picture, we could be looking at something like a libertarian communalism, which is, where, all these different places have their own kind of economy. Like, one county could be like ANCOM, the next county could be ANCAP, the next one could be mutualist. And then whatever works, they figure that out.
Right.
And then eventually they're all mutualist.
True.
Right. And that's the thing. That's exactly what our pitch was for the campaign with Adam. That's exactly the pitch. That was it. It is, whatever, one of the things that Adam used to say was, do you want Nancy Pelosi over what's going on in Texas? I don't remember the wording now, but the idea that people across this huge mass of land,
350 million people too,
right?
Jesus.
Can know what
God
people
damn.
in California don't know what the fuck people in New York should do, and they're both liberals. So
The only way that
dumb.
this shit has worked with empires that big has either been like forms of decentralization or ultimate authoritarianism. That's the only way that this is going to work. And the way we're headed for it, we're looking for the proverbial Orwellian society, or Huxley, if you want.
Well, and I would say when you say worked, I'll put it in quotes when you talk about that complete authoritarianism, because I think when you
say worked, I'm sorry.
what ends up happening is that it gets to that point, and then it just like falls apart, because it gets too big for itself. You can't.
I mean, look
eventually
at it,
you can't.
Rome.
Yeah, because the funny part about it is that it actually comes from the breakdown of like the what essentially would be like a mutualist or something along those lines type of economic model. Like when you try to do, and I'm not saying like the mutualist model breaks down. I'm saying like it's when they try to do something else, that's what breaks it. That's when it breaks down, because because what they do is they try to have as many people, because it almost becomes like a one of those MLM pyramid scheme type things, where it's like,
we're not allowed to do anything else. I mean,
like, hey, look, if you get two people under you, and then they control two people under them, then they control two people under them, then you end up with just like a bunch of people who are like, well, look, man, the king is the one who's the ultimate, like he gets a piece of everybody's cut. He gets a cut out of everybody's take from this thing. But you're still dealing with the little, grunt at the local level, but he's feeding all his shit back from so what is he going to do? He's going to do whatever the guy above him says, the guy above him says, and it just filters this authoritarianism all the way down. Whereas if people actually were able to like live according to what they produced and what they were willing to cooperate and how much of an asshole they were, if that's what was the determiner of like how well you succeeded in life, those people would be looking for work.
Right. Yeah,
it's only in that system.
Is follow orders.
Yeah. Only in the authoritarian system do they even have work.
Yeah,
Sure.
And one of the things that I've said multiple times, and we'll try to wrap up, but one of the things that I've said multiple times is that the state is awful at everything. They're not good at it. They're terrible at it. So being a state is something. So they're awful at being a state. You're not good at it.
They're even not good at being authoritarians,
right?
Because they fuck that up and piss people off and end up getting overthrown all the time.
Right. And I really do think right now
Goddamn
we're
time we do that
experiencing,
here.
we're experiencing them being awful at creating a pandemic. They are awful at it. They're not good at it at all. And they're trying to force some shit. They're not good at it at all. The perfect
Yeah,
example.
the information age.
Look,
The information age is giving us those tools to use against them.
Yeah, and that's why they have to destroy those. That's why they have to burn all the books.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nico.
No, I was gonna say, like, look, these motherfuckers have been doing espionage since we all came out the womb. If they really, really, really want to slide this under our nose, the finesse would be immaculate. But they just don't see that we're feasibly capable of the thought process to be like, I think something's kind of fishy, guys. Don't you agree? No.
So I don't know. Like I go back to Bill Cooper and the documents that he found that he revealed in Behold a Pale Horse. Some of what's going on here is you have to give the people the ability to not believe this shit. And then when they believe it, it's their own fucking noose they're tying around their neck. So that's the way. I mean, the way that they describe this shit is like you do the shit out front in the open, and if they're too stupid to figure it out, then they get what they deserve. They are what is the term that they use? They are beasts of burden and steaks on a plate by choice and consent, is what they say.
Wow. And I gotta say, I have to point this out. The occultist in me won't let me not point this out. What you just described, Chad, is the devil.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'm not denying that shit at all.
In the tarot. I know that in the devil card in the tarot deck, if you look at most tarot decks, some of them are janky and whatever. But yeah, the good tarot decks, if you look at the people being chained by the devil in the picture, they're like they've got it like loop around their neck, like they can just
they basically choose to be in that position.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, that's my take on spirituality anyway. Is
we need to wake up.
I think that we like I've always said this, like forgiveness is like is the adjoining rooms in a hotel where like there's two doors, they both have to be open in order for you to pass between the two rooms. So that way, like if you're not in an adjoining room with someone, that person can't just come into your room. Right. Well, God's door is always open, and we open and close our door by our own will, and by the same token, like to the extent that hell is what we've been told, that's a choice too. That's like a choosing to be separated. It's not something where God's like, all right, you did too many bad things. Get the fuck out of here. I hate you. I don't want you around me. No, it's like, I don't know, bro. I don't want to go up there. I don't want to be with you. I want to be down here with this loop around my neck. There's a lot of truth to that, man. It's a choice.
Sure. So I want to thank you for coming on, Sven, and I enjoy your posts. I almost always share them. There are a lot of the ones about unity, and if people haven't checked him out, they should go do that. And be aware that he starts fights too. When he posts this,
I don't mean to, but they have.
That happens to me too. I just put something out there. And
I guess maybe every now and then. I kind of try to push a few buttons here and there, but
yeah, but what I'm talking about is like it will be funny. This big post about like come together, everybody love each other, blah 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 blah. We need to unify, and then there's a ANCAP and a fucking ANCOM just screaming at each other for days on end.
God, right? Oh my God, I think one went on for like a week.
I know.
I reached so many people with that post. It was amazing.
Right? Yeah.
Hey, look.
So keep.
Sometimes that's what it takes. Yeah, keep doing what you're doing. We're gonna fix this thing.
Hell yeah.
All right, well, let's keep fighting the good fight. All right.
That's right.
For
That's
sure.
right.
All right. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Appreciate you much.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care, guys.
Before we do,
Bye.
Okay, what you got, Nico?
We got to point out the 2 shares.
2 shares to speed the spread. That's right.
You feel me? You hit us up with a like and subscribe. You feel me? If
Hell
you're feeling
yeah.
me though, that's if
Spread
you're
the
not,
Right.
disease.
like, you
Right.
can ski
That's
off
right.
the channel. And if you really rocking with us, that $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 Patreon, come on now, and
also
the
the
clothing
store.
line, and
The
you
store.
dig, like, come
Nice.
on now, rock with us, much appreciated.
That's right. That's right. And go
Good
check
shit,
out
guys.
Anarchy and Gray on Twitter. Anarchy or Death One, right? Is that the
That's it. That's the
yeah,
Twitter.
Yep. So go give them a follow and let's get this party started sooner rather than later so our kids can live in freedom.
For
I
sure.
hear you, brother.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. Peace, everybody.
Take care, guys.